A new report claims that while couples might be living together longer before they get married, they actually know less about one another's finances. And that's hard to believe. More than 7 million Americans have kept financial secrets from their spouses. So what should you know before walking down the aisle? Chris Brown spent years as a pastor before becoming a financial expert and speaker. He's also a speaker with Ramsey Solutions, which is Dave Ramsey's company or organization, and it combines faith with finances. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So why is that? You would think if you live with someone longer and you're under the same roof, you would know a lot about each other's finances.
Well, there's obviously a lack of communication. A relationship, whether married or even before marriage, is foundationally built on trust and built on communication. So obviously there's some kind of gap there. And when they're not talking about the things that really, really matter, just talking about maybe day-to-day life, there's a gap in that knowledge about each other. And so that can create some problem in a marriage.
So what tips do you have to prevent us from walking down the aisle and then later getting divorced because of our financial problems?
Well, there needs to be proactive communication before marriage and during marriage. And when you don't have enough communication in a marriage, that can create some tension. Finances touch every aspect of our life. And so when you don't talk about your finances, then there's significant issues.
So what do you need to ask your significant other? How much do you make? How much do you have in your 401k? What's your life plan? Like, what kinds of questions?
You get everything out in the open. Is there any statements? Are there any accounts?
Any debt?
Any debt?
Yeah.
Those kind of issues need to be out in the open. And then there needs to be an agreement. There needs to be an agreement on how to spend the finances. So there needs to be a monthly budget meeting.
What advice do you have then? Because sometimes it's hard not only to talk about it, but it's hard if your spouse says, hey, we really need to cut back on the expensive restaurants. We need to cut back on shopping. And you don't want to do that. So sometimes a lot of people feel like going into marriage, why would I do that? It's cutting out all my fun.
Yeah. You've got to go back to what your goals are. And when you sat down, when you first got together, you talked about your visions, your goals, where you're headed. Start there. Hey, listen, we agreed on these goals, and this is how we're going to get there. But you definitely got to agree.
Look at you. Have a goal in mind. Like if you want to buy an apartment, if you want to buy a house, keep that in mind.
Yes.
As you're missing out on the restaurants and you know, all the fun.
And you do have to understand each other's differences. You have to know that some are savers, some are spenders. And there's a big difference between the two. So you really got to think through, hey, I want to embrace each other's differences.
So if one is the saver, do you give all your money to the saver? And do you recommend joint bank accounts or separate?
Oh, joint for sure.
Really?
The highest level of trust is going to be a joint bank account.
Wow.
Yes.
That's hard to do, especially if you both work.
Yes.
Because you've worked so hard for your money.
It is.
But you got to let go of that, right, when you're married.
You do.
All right. Thanks so much. Great advice.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.